So prosperity pastor Joel Osteen, who is the leader of Lakewood Church in Houston, recently came under fire after Houston Chronicle, which is one of the publications in Houston, reported that his church received $4.4 million in paycheck protections. Now, the Paycheck Protection Program is part of the CARES Act, which was passed, I believe, in May by Congress. Now, this is in America, obviously. And this is such an important and really embarrassing story that I just came across. And it's disgusting. So, according to statistics that were taken by the Small Business Administration, Lakewood Church, which is a megachurch, right? They're actually in the former Houston Rockets arena, and they have about 30,000 members. They received the third largest bailout, essentially, of all quote-unquote small businesses in Houston. The data shows that Lakewood applied for the loan on July 21st and that 368 jobs would be affected by this loan. So to have the loan fully forgiven, PPP loans must be used for payroll costs, interest on mortgages, rents, and utilities. Lakewood was among 60 religious institutions that received these bailouts. And there were amongst the 60 in Texas, by the way. So the problem here is that Lakewood, like many of these other religious institutions in America, are tax exempt. So they're basically getting these bailouts and they don't even pay taxes. That's really what's pissing me off about this. And it shows that this whole separation of church and state, which is enshrined in the Constitution, it's not really a thing. In fact, the PPP, which stands for the Paycheck Protection Program, it marks the first time in US history that the US government bailed out untaxed religious institutions and houses of worship. What's interesting is that Joel Osteen was originally saying that his church didn't accept any money from the federal PPP loans, but that's clearly obviously not the case. Back to my main point about this is that organized religion in America, they are put on such a high pedestal. Like, what do they actually contribute to society besides scamming and conning the more vulnerable people that come to their congregation? It's absolutely absurd. Now I'm gonna go and talk about Joel Osteen, who is the leader of Lakewood Church, which is actually the largest megachurch in America, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it's just me, but Joel Osteen, he kind of looks like the evil Craig Kielburger. But that's a side note. So, Osteen, he is worth about $60 million and has a house worth $10.5 million. And this house, literally, it's like the size of the Eaton Center in Toronto. I'm not even kidding. I'm gonna show you a picture of it because it's just insane. And he says that his fortune is from sales from his 14 books, many of which have sold millions of copies around the world, and lucrative speaking engagements across America. By the way, if you're one of those people that has spent money on his books, I feel really sorry for you. And he takes in an estimated $43 million every year in church donations, and viewers send in millions, even though he doesn't ask for donations while on his TV show. And one of the most egregious parts of this man's life is when there was a Hurricane Harvey in 2017. And his church, they didn't even open the door for people who were seeking refuge, right? Because this resulted in like over $1 billion in damages. Many people lost their homes. And the church was saying that, oh, well, the church isn't sustainable right now. There's all of these repairs and all of these excuses. It's important to note that after receiving intense scrutiny on social media and from mainstream media, Lakewood Church finally decided to house people that were displaced by Hurricane Harvey. Now, it's good that they finally started to house people that were not able to return to their houses because they were underwater, but make no mistake about it, the only reason why they decided to help people out was because of this bad press that they were getting. What they ended up doing was they bought cots and supplies and they opened a shelter after receiving the scrutiny, and they housed as many as 450 people for several days. So I'll give them that. But again, they were so sluggish in their response, and they only did it because they were starting to look incredibly bad, and rightfully so. And yet they're raking in all of these money from people who are vulnerable and just looking for someone that can like lead them to a life of prosperity. But really, people like Joel Osteen are charlatans. The whole purpose of these prosperity churches is that, oh, well, if you donate money to the church, well, it will lead you to the promised land and you'll live a life of wealth. That's all a bunch of bullshit. And this guy is a con man, just like any of these other prosperity pastors. And the sad thing about it is that these guys are not men of God. This is like something you would think that the devil would be doing. Why do you need to have a house that has 6 6 bedrooms, 3 elevators, all for what? I don't think these guys realize that Jesus was practically a communist when you look at the things that he was advocating for. These guys are the antithesis of what Jesus stood for. So at the end of the day, what they're doing is that they're just trying to extract money from vulnerable people who are very gullible, and they're just laundering this bullshit using charisma. So my main point of this video is that I really hope that religious institutions in America, also in Canada, start getting taxed. Because if you're going to be getting bailouts while other small businesses go under all across the country, then you should be paying your fair shares, because you shouldn't be getting these bailouts and then you don't contribute anything to society. To me, it seems like robbery and it should be changed. But anyways, those are my thoughts on this recent scandal, and see you guys next time. Peace.